Hi everyone, Romesh Shivasto here, Editor-in-Chief, Sites and Plus. Actually, the agenda for today's discussion is prevention of sexual harassment at the workplaces. When I'm talking about the workplaces, means we are talking about the hybrid workplaces, because the people have also started working from the offices. The sexual harassment is considered sex discrimination, and it does happen when the people are working remotely. Online sexual harassment cases are skyrocketed in the last 2 years when we moved to the remote working. And now it is in the form of using some online resources like instant messaging, like emails, images of sexual in nature, or intimidation kind of bullying kind of messages that the recipient feel threatened, uncomfortable, or uneasy about the communication. It could also consist of making sexual remark during the video conferences, or just because of communication happens through the electronic channels rather than in person does not mean that it do not constitute the sexual harassment. Yes, of course, this all also constitute the sexual harassment. The Government of India, under the Ministry of Women and Child Development, has also developed an online complaint management system that is titled as the Sexual Harassment Electronic Box. And online victim can register the online complaint here. To discuss in more detail, we have an excellent panel. Let me introduce Mr. Amitabh Kumar. Amitabh is Chief Human Resource Officer with the JMU with around 2 decades of experience as a HR professional. Another co-panelist is Shivangi Tibrewala. Shivangi is a business evangelist with the compliance calendar. Shivangi, I would like to come to you first.
Hi, Romesh.
Shivangi, how do you see how the PoSH prevents the sexual harassment at the workplaces? And the added question is that how do you see the different for the differences there in sexual harassment complaints in the last 2 years?
Okay. I am just trying to start my video here. Just give me a minute. Yeah. Hi, everyone. All right. So, Romesh, so we'll start with the basic question first. Let's help everybody understand as to what PoSH is, and then I'll take up your question again. So, in very simple terms, PoSH was enacted back in 2013, but then there was a very long battle to kind of like, to have an act and, specifically designed to protect women at workplaces. The PoSH Act basically has 3 major criteria. That's prevention, prohibition, and redressal. So if you look at the abbreviation, it's nothing but Prevention, Prohibition, and Redressal Act enacted in 2013. That's December 9, 2013. And it's applicable in the entire, the whole of India. So that's a little bit about the PoSH Act. And then, definitely, I'll just go back to your question. Comparing to the number of cases, which goes to there's a drastic difference when it comes to reporting cases, because I guess to 2020, since the time COVID has began, I guess there was an entire shift, right? Shift in the workplace. The definition of workplace changed for everybody. We earlier were just used to one thing where we would go to the workplace, like office basically was considered as a workplace. But then I guess that is why majority of them did not really understand that what is an extended workplace. PoSH Act clearly defines that your house or any place where you are actually working from, that's actually called as an extended workplace and will be considered as an office. So I mean, pretty much there's just been a significant rise in the number of cases, especially in the last 2 years, because I guess everything started becoming online. People didn't really understand the decorum. A lot of people, very simple example, right? Like today, we are having a Zoom session, calling people at odd hours, asking somebody to specifically show their video, even when, let's say, an employee is not really comfortable doing that. There's just been a lot of social media chats where you see people just reaching out on social media, randomly adding everybody, since now everyone's working online. So all these things kind of, just change the whole definition of what basically is sexual harassment. And I guess now we've come up with altogether a different term. And I'll definitely take that question up too. But I guess this answers your question as to like what's been the number. There's just been a significant rise, I would say, like especially in the last 2 years since COVID.
So Amitabh would like to add something into this.
Yeah, just to add to what Shivangi has already said, a couple of points, as she has rightly pointed out, it has been a long battle as far as this act is concerned. And in fact, this
Yes,
act evolved out of, the Vishaka guidelines, which was framed by Supreme Court in
absolutely.
1997. And before that itself,
Yeah.
there was a 2-decade-long battle as to define, what exactly is the workplace and what exactly is defined as a sexual harassment and how it is to be prevented. I mean, each company was.
Yeah, I guess if we go back, it all
Yes.
started by the worker, right? The Miss like Banwari Devi. I mean, that's
Yes, Banwari
basically
Devi
like
case,
I guess
and
her
finally,
battle led to the development of
yes,
of the Sexual Harassment Act altogether. But it was
yes,
definitely a 2-decade battle. It was a very
it is a
long battle.
2-decade
So
battle,
yeah,
and the first time the detailed guidelines were set up was in 97 when the Supreme Court came out with the Vishaka guidelines, and later on these same
Vishaka
guidelines were
guidelines. Yeah.
evolved into the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act, which was enacted in 2013. Now, couple of things, while what she talked about rightly is about the notional extension. While this notional extension of theory of workplace has been in place, from the time the Workman Compensation Act also came in. Also, that time also there was some discussion around what exactly is the notional extension of workplace. But as far as the act is concerned and what would constitute a workplace, this has been very clearly defined in this act,
Defined
and it
now. I
doesn't
guess
just cover
everyone's now
the.
clear that
Yes,
yeah.
it just
That
doesn't
any
cover
place,
the
let's say I'm
office.
going out on a work. Yeah. I mean,
Yes,
I'm just going on an official work. Let's say I'm going to a bank for an official work. That also, like anything happening on my way out, because
yeah.
it's again an official work, that also anything happening there would also be my employer's responsibility. So even
It also
that
talks
would
about,
fall under sexual harassment.
what happens when you are not at the workplace. The another good feature of the this whole act is it does not just cover the employees, it can also cover the potential employees. So most of the acts tend to make a distinction between the regular workforce or the contract, a distinction between the various categories of workforce. So there is no definition like supervisor, workman, contract employees, or all the persons who are there in the premises are covered
Yeah.
under this act.
Yeah,
So this
Amitabh,
is
if you
one
can
good
Yeah.
feature of this.
Organized, unorganized sector, everybody,
Yes,
even the staff, basically. It's not just limited to white collar employees.
yes.
Even the
White
staff, like
collar or
whoever
blue
is
collar
basically
employees,
in the
because
office
yeah.
premises are
Yes, because see, if you look at it, the history of labor law in India, most of the acts were written when we had basically only the textile and the steel industry or couple of these industries were there. So most of the acts had the language and the per act, which I would say was that it does not create any boundaries whether you are a blue collar, white collar, or whatever it could, and from what other acts which are there for the protection of workforce. Yes, Ramesh.
Yeah, I would like to, we have, had a basic introduction about the PoSH and what kind of the complaints are now. So let us go to the process now. How does it prevent the sexual harassment at the workplace? How we, what the modus of operandi is there for this PoSH?
Okay, so first of all, it gives you a detailed guideline of first of all what exactly is harassment. As Shivangi has also earlier pointed out, and you have also rightly pointed out that over a period of last couple of years, while the work has also moved, a lot of work has moved online, the harassment has also moved online. So it also gives a very detailed guideline on what exactly constitutes, maybe that way, this way I said earlier also, this is a very forward-looking act. It does not just talk about, the premises, it also talks about a detailed guideline of what exactly constitutes the sexual harassment. So it is not just, you are calling somebody and then, harassing in person or doing something or touching or something. It includes all these things, acts, whether it is an inducement to promotion. It also includes, showing of pornography or any other message which can be constituted as a threat. So in that way, it's a very detailed guideline, and that is how the sexual harassment is understood. I think Shivangi, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, Shivang, you would like to add something?
No,
What is the modus of operandi?
no, I guess whatever was covered was pretty much enough. But I guess all the questions which were like right now, the question which you asked again, probably should be towards the end of the session, because I guess when we talk about awareness and implementation, because that's the title of our webinar today, we obviously like start from the basics, because we covered what PoSH Act is and how it's actually moving online right now. I feel it's more important for everybody here to also understand that PoSH Act only limits to women. Okay, when you actually talk about PoSH Act, it's stated as aggrieved women, not aggrieved person. There's a massive difference. So it's only
let us come to the committees, how to form the committee and what the legality.
The internal complaints committee.
Yes.
Yeah, let's just cover it step by step, and then obviously take up these questions too, because I'm sure we have time. I mean, we actually have time to do that. So when it comes to internal complaints committee is a committee set up to specifically look into PoSH cases. Okay, it's not like any other, it's not a boards committee. So internal complaints committee, which we also call as ICC, and there's one more which is called as local complaints committee. So the formation of ICC is mandatory when there's an employer that has more than 10 employees, and an organization which has more than 10 employees. It is mandatory for them to have a proper PoSH policy in place. When I say PoSH policy, a proper implemented PoSH policy, as well as an ICC committee in place. An ICC committee is the committee which looks into PoSH cases. Specifically, when it comes to taking up the PoSH cases, redressing it, given the timelines as specified in the Act. And now coming to how do we report it? You have 90 days time to report it. So, and the ICC again has 90 days time to dispose of the case. So it's 3 months again. Within 3 months, you're free to basically just file a complaint. You can just email or reach out to the ICC committee. I'm sure when you look up at your PoSH policy, every detail is clearly mentioned. Like you can just look at the details of who are the members of your ICC committee and just file an official complaint with them. So that's the procedure. Do not reach out to the HR. I mean, this is a standard statement I make in like every webinar I take up on the PoSH Act, because this is the problem with us. We don't really know, because we don't really actually care about this. We are not really focused on, because we are in this impression all the time that nothing like this is going to ever happen to us. That makes it very difficult for us to, understand that if anything like this ever happens, what do we do? And that is when you actually struggle, because you don't know what's the process, you don't know what is PoSH, you don't know who's the committee, and you don't know whom to reach out to. So this is why we talk about awareness awareness is extremely important, is just because of this. It's always good to know whom do you reach out to in case something happens, what does your PoSH policy cover, and who are basically, the committee members. So you can go and directly talk to them when anything like this happens. I guess that's all from my end.
Also, Shivangi, is it also to have
So Romesh, let me just talk about
internal committee is still if there is no women in organization?
Yeah. So
when we talk about composition of committee, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, composition of committee, at least half should be women employees, and a minimum of 4 members, amongst which half should be, 3 members should be within the organization, and 1 person should be an external member.
I'm talking about the organization. If in an organization there's no women working, still do we need to have an internal complaint committee?
You mean when you have 10 employees, but you don't have 10 women employees, right? Is that what you mean?
Only 10 male employees are there. No women is working.
Yeah, you still need to have a PoSH policy, because the Act states employees. Yeah,
employees.
you still need to have a committee in place, because if you ever
And
have anybody joining in, you still need to have a committee.
Another added question is from the participants. Do we also need the committee for the branches? Means there should be one common committee
Yes,
for
yes.
organization, or that would be also
No,
needed
no.
for branches? For the
No,
branches,
no. Every branch should have a separate committee. Let's talk about banks today, right? Banks have multiple branches. Ye nahi ki like the head branch has one committee and they look at like all the sub branches cases to know. Every branch should have a separate committee. This is as per the
Additionally,
guidelines of the act.
one more thing is that every state has its own rules framed, and they require you to maintain a register. So it is not that you can have one common register which will cover all over India. So even as per the rules, also
Exactly.
it is important that you maintain register at all your locations or the state as may be
All your
as may
workplaces.
be
Yes.
mandated or framed in the rule. Coming back to the point about just a little bit about the composition of committee, what the act state is that more than 50% of the women members should be women. It also mandates that you should have
Yeah.
a external member who has to be from an
External
NGO.
member. Yeah.
External member is very, very essential, because just to ensure that there is what I would call as an
No
unbiased
bias,
decision, because
basically.
the
Yeah.
complaint
Yeah.
may not,
Unbiased
yes,
decision.
and complaint may not always be against a junior member or a peer member. It can also be against a senior person or even a board member level person. So in that kind of a situation, even if you have a committee which is consisting of simply of employees, how will you ensure that the justice is done? Just to ensure that there is a fair amount of fairness in the process, the way ICC approaches a complaint and it disposes of the complaint, it goes into the investigation. It is very, very, and to from a forward looking perspective, a external member is mandated in the committee. So that is one very distinguished, because most of the other committees or whichever work committee and all which are formed, there is no requirement for an external person. But in this case, there is a specific requirement that there should be an external member who should be from preferably from an NGO background, or who has been working on the
Any
women
social
related
organization,
issues, any
NGO, or
social
somebody who
organization,
works,
something who
women
can
related issues.
give you an unbiased view onto these issues.
if we can, that would be great if you can also add what would be the role of this external member in the committee.
So external member is one.
They have to be present in all the proceedings.
They have to be they have to be present in the proceedings. They have to be part of, because there is a review meeting which is supposed to be held. They have to be part of that review meeting, and their compensation, your remuneration is, everything is fixed as per the act. They have to also sign the register which is mandated for the complaints. Even if there is zero complaint, they still have to sign the register that there are zero complaints.
They still have to sign it.
Expected to also drive the, what I would call as the internal communication within the organization. What Shivangi raised the point about, it is, while it is good to have HR as your point of contact, there could be other people also. It doesn't stop with HR. You should also know how to approach ICC. So whether it is setting up an hotline in the organization, it is setting up an email which can only be opened by the ICC members, and awareness drive within the organization.
Absolutely, because this way we maintain the confidentiality, right? Because when it goes to the HR, in majority of the cases, absolutely, because in most of the cases, whenever it's gone to the HR, it happens that the whole office, the organization gets to know, because the HR doesn't really know about the act, again, like herself or himself. It becomes difficult to maintain confidentiality. So that's why it's very important that you read your own company's PoSH policy. I'm sure towards the end of the PoSH policy, there will be a dedicated email or a contact number, so that if anything crops up, all you have to do is just write them an email. They'll call you again for a proper, they'll obviously have a meeting with you in person where you can talk to them about what has happened. But yeah, I would always recommend that you formally reach out to the ICC committee.
I see little overlapping is happening. Both are enthusiastic. I know on this topic. So let's take the inputs one by one. So that would be good for the participants, I think so. Next, let us, after the introduction part and the committee part, I'd like to know, Shivangi, from you, that if there's any victim who feels that she is victim, then how she can approach, how she can go for the report, and what would be the process, how the process starts here, with the internal committee, or what the process is there?
Okay, it's a simple process, Romesh. What we do is, again, as per the timelines and the guidelines given by the Act, you have 3 months of time to file a official complaint. Within that 3 months, make sure that you file a complaint with your ICC committee. File a formal complaint. I would always suggest, given all the experience I carry when I've worked into like this sector, make sure if you have any evidence, please give proper evidence. And when you're filing an email complaint, attach all the evidences, make sure you are aware of what exactly has happened to you, and then describe it absolutely, like, in a proper manner, so that it's always clear to the ICC committee. Don't just be like, I'm a victim of sexual harassment, please help me. Because I've also come across complaints where, it's not really, it's not a clear response also, right? Again, it becomes very difficult for the ICC committee to also investigate the matter when I'm not opening up, when I'm not telling you what's happened with me. While I absolutely, I'm not trying to disregard the victim's mind state, because I'm sure there's a lot of emotional turmoil at that point. But at the same time, just be very clear about the case, attach any evidences, and file a formal complaint within 3 months to the ICC committee. That's the process.
So as we were talking about, Shivangi, that this is act is for the women especially, but now we are getting
Yes,
the cases are being reported by the men, even men to men, women to women. This kind of the cases are also coming up. Then what is the
absolutely.
process?
Yes,
How
yes.
when the man is harassed? In that case, how the process start? Does it come into this act or any another separate provisions are there for this?
No. All right. So again, as we started off this conversation with, the act only applies to women. The aggrieved person here, as per the act, the perpetrator can just be a man. I mean, that's basically how it's put forward. But at the same time, majority of the organizations these days have a gender neutral policy. So in this case, obviously you would not be covered under the act, but at the same time, the organization is bound to take up your case. Your employer is bound to take up your case. So what you do is you still file a complaint with the ICC committee, and they'll take it forward. But it's not going to be as per the guidelines of the act. It's going to be independently handled by the ICC committee, because the act will not cover you. The act is only going to cover a women employee. That's it.
And I would like to add something
Yeah,
here.
Ramesh, see what happens is a large number of companies, what they are doing is, see, law states one part of it, and maybe what is the entire universe of it, maybe only 25 or 30% of the cases are there, which are exactly coming under PoSH Act. So these commit acts which are specifically mentioned, protection of women, so they will come under PoSH Act. But larger number of organization, because they are forward looking, or they are mandated by their global headquarters, or even Indian companies which are coming up and saying they are forcing a larger committee, or they are looking at a larger problem as more of a diversity and equal opportunity also. So you will have
Inclusion.
cases,
Yeah.
yes, and inclusion also, diversity, equal opportunity, inclusion, DEI,
Diversity and
which is a big
inclusion.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes. And how do you get people from all genders or anything to commit and to help them? So it could, an organization can have a larger policy which can be independent of PoSH Act. It can cover people of transgender, alternate sexuality, or any other such instances where women are being harassed by a woman, or even where a male employee is being harassed by a woman employee, or it could be any other cases. It could be general bullying by one employee, manager to employee. And these cases are becoming a lot of sensitivity attached to it. Some of them may get handled under the larger umbrella of providing a better mental health, or better working conditions, or better working environment to employees, or it can be covered under the DEI employee. It is actually up to the employer as to how he approaches that problem. But and there are different reasons also. You will see in India caste discrimination, disadvantage, people coming from different background. You will have these kind of issues. One of the companies where I was working on, there was a big issue about the food, because majority of the workers from one state, and there were some workers which were there from a different state, and they were feeling that they are not getting the food of their choice, and there was an issue. So one has to be sensitive towards it. But in the interest of time, since our conversation is only about the PoSH Act, so we will look at it only on the PoSH Act. Maybe some point in time, little later, we can talk about issues like DEI or any other non-discriminatory policies, or how to look at at a larger ambit of discrimination or making it a safer or a better workplace.
Shivangi, now I would like to come to the PoSH training part. So, what are the benefits of this PoSH training, and how it can build a safe environment in organization?
Okay. Coming to PoSH training, I feel like a lot of organizations these days just do it because of compulsion, because the act, again, if there is no proper committee, if there's no policy maintained, if there is no sensitization programs conducted on a regular basis, there's a penalty imposed on the company, right, for non-compliance. So majority of the small organizations still consider this as a compulsion, and it's not really a necessity for them. It's basically to be done just for the sake of doing it. But when we talk about PoSH training today, majority of the independent PoSH practitioners and like PoSH trainers, we have like a PoSH toolkit designed where we have proper PoSH policy, starting from the PoSH policy, implementation of PoSH policy, training the ICC members, training the employees, and then conducting regular checks on let's say a quarterly sensitization program. And again, even the induction sessions, let's say like large global organizations, they keep hiring. So let's say every 2 months they have 10 more employees joining. So every induction session of theirs, we can also have like a dedicated PoSH session, like a 30-minute session to educate them about the PoSH policy, and that whom do they reach out to in case something like this happens. A simple Q&A sort of a thing, so that people know what do we do, basically, like simple understanding of the PoSH Act, like a Q&A sort of a thing, which is a part of the toolkit again. So this is basically like I guess something which would help the organizations too, at the same time also the employees, to keep like a regular check on them if they're aware on what the PoSH policy basically is, and whom do they reach out to. How does the redressal mechanism work in case the employer doesn't really take responsibility or ownership of the complaint, or let's say the complaint was disposed of but the victim is not really happy with the way it was addressed. What is the procedure then? Whom do they reach out to them? Can a police action be taken? Because in some cases the severity is too high, right? It's not a simple case where even the employers are not really able to deal with it, so it goes to the court. So there are many I feel there are many pillars to is we design like a proper toolkit which includes regular training programs, updation of PoSH policy in case there is any amendment to the act. We also cover that. So I guess pretty much about the training, I guess. Yeah.
So, Amitabh would
Anything
like
to add, Amitabh,
Yeah.
please?
So
Yeah.
only thing I would like to add is that because it is such a sensitive topic, most of the organizations nowadays are mandating that from the day one of the employee joining, there is a training module which is part of his joining formalities. The way you issue the laptop, the way you take the person through the office premises, you take him around the office, instruct him, here is the cafeteria, here is it. Typically, these policies are written down and there is a training module conducted on the day one. As far as this is concerned, what Shivangi raised a very valid point about having a toolkit. There are specialized training which are there for the ICC and also for the senior management to see the best way to stop these issues and the complaints coming in is to sensitize the management and the team. So if the senior management is sensitized enough, you will not have so many issues. So there are separate programs for senior management team, how to work upon, create a safe environment for everyone. There are, training programs for internal committee members because they also have to deal with the legal aspect of it. Because see, while we say, the complaint has to be filed within 90 days, you might have a situation where somebody has not been filed.
Where it's also delayed.
In 90 days.
Yeah.
Complaint is delayed because for whatever reason it could be. And then, committee is supposed to adjudicate, why the complaint has, whether it is a genuine complaint, should we entertain that complaint or not? There are a lot of legal aspects of it also. And there could be a situation where the person who has a problem is illiterate. So she's not able to file the complaint in writing, or due to some reason she is indisposed or not able to, or not willing to come forward and file a written complaint. in this kind of situation, how do you ensure that the complaint gets filed, it is properly done, and it is investigated? Because the ICC will have a very different training requirement from what your senior management would be more towards sensitization. Internal committee members would be more towards the legal aspect of it, because they also have to understand the rules, procedure, what to do, what if kind of
Yeah.
scenarios they will have to supposed to educate on it. And for an employee, it is the basic, again, sensitization training. And as far as material is concerned, while there is enough available on the internet and everything, I mean, one can read about
Internet.
it, but even, yes, but as an employer, if you look at it, there are a lot of courses which are available, and both, on LMS. I mean, most of the courses nowadays are of the kind where which you can simply upload on the LMS, and they are, you can run it as a part of your induction course.
So Shivangi,
And just one thing to add here, Romesh,
yes.
sorry, is when we talk about the legal aspect, right? The training to
That's what I'm
ICC
coming.
is
That's what I'm coming
very,
to.
very important, is because
Let us go for this. Yeah, that's what I'm coming to. This. Let us start with what are the mandatory steps, mandatory compliances. Then we will go to the returns and all. What are the mandatory compliances under this act for the organization?
your question is not really clear, Romesh.
Yeah,
Please repeat it once again.
My question is for the organizations. This is an act. So under this act, what are the mandatory compliances for the organization that they need to follow?
I guess pretty much what we've just been talking about is, having a proper PoSH policy in place, making sure there's the formation of ICC committee, making sure there's proper training given to the ICC committees, as well as to the, as Amitabh clearly stated, to the senior management, as well as to the employees, making sure that, ICC, when I was telling that there was one point to add was because the power vested, to the ICC is as same as the powers vested, under the Code of Civil Procedure, like 1908. So, there are principles of natural justice to be followed, and that's very, very important. This is why training is absolutely important, because, it becomes very important that you deal with the victim, you dispose of the complaint in an appropriate manner, be very sensitive, because it's actually a very sensitive area, and somebody who's opening up, and not many people today are even strong enough to stand up and report, so the organization should make sure that you make the victim feel safe to open up. That's the role of ICC committee. That's the primary role of ICC committee. So these are the mandatory compliances. And I guess, again, it's also one more important step is to include in your company's annual report. That's a major compliance that, if there has been any cases in the, in the following year, even if it is 0, you still have to mention 0. Or if there are any cases, you have to mention that, there were X number of cases, and now these X number of cases have been disposed, and there's nothing going on currently. So this is the basic compliances, which has, basic set of compliances that has to be followed. And I guess anything else, Amitabh, I guess pretty much.
Yes, couple of points, just like to add, the report which is being submitted by the SEC should also include, what is the inquiry report. Please understand that inquiry report which is being written is also a legal document. So in case if this moves forwards, or the complainant goes to file a case against you in the State Women's Commission, or even district, social welfare officer, whosoever may be the mandated authority, as far as ICC, reports have to go to, your documents, you may be asked to submit the document. So it is very, very important that whatever register you are maintaining, or whatever inquiry reports are being done, are done in a clear manner, which can be also, because it's a legal document also, end of the day. And the other thing is that, the committee reports or register should mention, how many complaints are pending beyond 90 days. So all these records have to be maintained. And once if the complaint has been substantiated, what action has been taken against the person who has, caused this issue.
And there might be some reports, might be quarterly reports, means returns, quarterly returns, some annual return. So so that comes out of the Ministry of Women and I think Child Development. So where these reports are being submitted, what the process is for this?
Okay, see, each state has its own rules. Somewhere they are saying you should submit it to the district social welfare officer. Somewhere they are saying, you have to submit to the district magistrate, and some states are also saying that you can even submit it to the labor commissioner. So it depends on the each state. See, it's a central act, but each state has notified its own rule. So one will have to take
Own
on the
rules,
case by
yes.
case basis that which state has formed which kind of a rule. But it does
That's
require
why
a
I was
return to
mentioning
go.
LCC as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
LCC, because just say we have ICC in place, we also have a local committee in place. When there is less than 10 employees, and still if there is any case, then these kind of cases go to the local committee, which is formed by the government, which is nothing but like an NGO or a group of social workers who are, aware of, working in a similar field relating to women's rights or, women's welfare. So that's the power of LCC as well. So when we talk internal complaints committee is a committee set up within the organization. LCC is something which is set up by the government, which is outside of the organization. So yeah, I guess pretty much about the committees here. And I guess we also have a lot of questions right now. I was just looking at the chat box.
But most of the questions are answered already. That's what I'm looking at.
Okay.
Most of the questions are
Okay.
answered here.
Okay.
Some questions are related to male, female. Yeah, that has been answered. But that is the internal cover. Yes, of course, the
Okay.
internal cover. And so that's what I'm looking for. So let us come to our points. So how we can sensitize? How we can sensitize the workforce? Any they need to have a policy, then to disseminate the policy, then come to the how they can sensitize the workforce.
Okay. From an
Well, there are
perspective,
many.
Yeah,
No
but-
problem, Amita, please. I'll
from a
add.
training perspective, if we look at it, one of the best practices is that you should have it as a part of induction program. Do not depend that the previous employer has sensitized or has done the training for the employees who are entering your organization. So each organization should have its own policy clearly, have its own training program, and which must be communicated to all employees on day one. What are the do's, what are the don'ts? And some of the scenarios where we are seeing companies, in some of the companies they're also saying that they have their own guidelines, that you cannot send a message on a personal number to an employee after a office hours. So there could be company can have its own guidelines also. So it is very, very important that these guidelines are clearly committed to employees. And yes, that's it from my side. Yeah.
Anything you would like to add, Shivangi?
No, that's it. I mean, pretty much covered the entire.
Shivangi, we're getting a lot of questions about might be the interns, might be the security guard, might be so if you can define here what the employee is considered here, because that is a very broad, interns also, sometimes guests also, they are included. So if you can define what the employee is here in this act.
Ramesh, I was not clear. Is this anything related with the chat box? I mean, because I can look up the
Yeah, that is
question right
related to
here.
chat box.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A lot of questions are there that either interns are included.
Can you repeat the? Yeah, absolutely. That's what. See, I guess
So that's what I'm
towards the
saying.
starting of the session itself. Yeah. See, if you are an intern, if you are somebody who's on a let's say contractual basis, contractual employee,
Right.
or let's say you are anybody who is within the workplace. Again, it's not just limited to a white collar employee or blue collar employee. Since you are a part of the payroll, you are being paid. You are a staff. Doesn't matter what your designation is. You are still covered under the PoSH Act. And this, again, I'm just talking about women here because, again, we're just talking about the PoSH Act. So I'm just telling you, if today I am just an intern for 3 months, I mean, I am still covered in that 3 months. If anything happens with me in the organization, it is the employer's responsibility, and it still falls under the PoSH Act.
And another thing comes, that is the workplace. Workplace means we need to also define here what is the workplace. Means that is only within the premises. Suppose you are conducting an interview in a hotel, and that time something happens. Might be one girl is there, one person is interviewed there. So that
Still
is
covered, yeah.
Still covered.
If we can define this a little, for the participant, that would be great. Because
Okay, see, it is typically what can be seen as a notional extension of the workplace, and this is a concept which is used in some other acts also, like Workmen Compensation Act also. So it could include not just your office premises, but even the vehicle in which the person is traveling for. If you have a company bus, which is bringing employees from your home to workplace, or even wherever, whichever place a woman employee is required to visit during the course of employment or during the course of work.
Work,
And if you
exactly.
are conducting
During the
a
course of work.
interview in the hotel, even if the candidate who has come is also covered under that.
Is also covered under the PoSH
Covered
Act.
under that.
Yeah,
Is
that's a
also
very
covered under the
interesting
PoSH Act.
point. Yes.
Yeah.
And Shivangi, in case the victim is not satisfied with the ICC committee, whatever the conclusion in the last, then what is the next? Where she or he can move? Means she, of course, she can move.
See, this actually, I mean, it's not as simple as it looks, this particular question. Because when it comes to not satisfaction, it also depends. Majority of the complaints, even today, first thing, I guess it should be very clear that none of this complaint is for like any monetary purpose, because PoSH Act clearly states that, and many people do it for monetary reasons, or there's like a malicious complaint filed just out of, let's say like pure revenge, or somebody who wants to just like excel. And so there's a lot when it comes to this particular question. When you say you're not satisfied, I would still say that that's actually one of the primary areas that the ICC committee should look at. But the satisfaction in terms of what, like, because today there is interim relief. Like today when I'm filing a complaint, and this will take back to my own case, because I'll just take it back to my own case. When I filed a complaint, the first step which was done was to just keep me away from the organization while the investigation was going on. So this is like an interim relief provided by the ICC committee to keep me away. So while the
I think the question is that suppose if you're not justified, you can say, if you're not justified, then can you move to the court? I think this is the question.
See, it can be done. It can be done.
that-
See,
yeah.
PoSH Act talks about, what is the internally available mechanism. Now, PoSH
Exactly,
committee
yeah.
has to do its job. It has to file its report. It has to also file an action taken report. It has to file all its return. And it is like any other situation. If you are not satisfied with the outcome of the case, or it could be for so many different reasons. You are finding that the punishment given is too less, or the person is being let off
Or
very lightly. It could be anything. Maybe your complaint is not being taken seriously, the evidence has not been taken seriously. Whatever it could be reason is, the person is always free to approach the court. But at the same time, in this case,
Court, yeah.
court will also rely on the documents and whether the PoSH committee itself has done its job properly or not. I mean, have they taken all the factors into consideration?
It will
Have they
take it
gone
back
through
to the
all the
ICC
records?
committee. Yeah.
It will also look at ICC committee. If the ICC committee has not done its job, then only court will interfere. Typically, I'm not aware of any such cases. Maybe some
Entertain
of the
this
lawyers
complaint,
can,
yes.
lawyer can take it better, that if court has interfered in the process of the punishment, or has interfered with the punishment awarded under the act. I'm not aware of any such case, but maybe some lawyer can.
It has happened in one case, Amitabh.
Yeah.
Like I've personally dealt with one case, but this was only because the severity of the complaint was really high. It actually firstly what was done was the victim approached to the police, and the police again sent it back to the ICC, because this is the protocol, right? You can't just go to the court directly. The police will not entertain any complaint like that. You first need to approach the ICC. If your employer is not ready to take it up, if it is not disposed of properly, you're not satisfied, then the last resort would be to get it back again there. And then we had actually, this has gone to the court, and it's actually still going on. It's it's actually a very interesting case. I'll share the case details so everybody can read about it to get an idea. But I mean, again, going to court is always an option, but that's the last resort, because this is supposed to be solved by the employer. Basically, it's the employer's responsibility, so it has to be solved by the ICC. And if you're not satisfied, I would say, like, first thing you do is again take it back, and you demand for what you want. And in case it's not taken up, then you go to the court.
Yeah, I think it is answered well. And let us move to the another question from the participant. Shivang, you told that while filing the complaint, there must be proper evidences. So what are these evidences they need to attach? This is the question from a participant, that what are these evidences which need to be attached?
See, it would again depend on like case to case, but in simple areas, let's say you are working with like a group of employees and you see that there is, there's been like a sexual remark or, let's say, it's against your senior manager today, you're working in his team. Some things happened and, you see that this is happening very openly, people are watching you. Put these people as references, because when the ICC investigates, they will definitely reach out to these people. In many areas, let's say if it's happening online today, since a lot of cases today are related to a lot of things happening online because you're working from home yet. So these screenshots can be again like an evidence. Let's say somebody's reaching out to you on, your personal social media profile, passing some comments which are derogatory and, some sexual remarks, asking you for sexual favor in return of giving you, let's say, a preferential treatment. And if all of this is happening on a text message, if you are getting calls at like odd timings, take a screenshot of all of this. Make sure you don't delete it right away. Take screenshot, attach all of this in the email, because it will help. It will just help the ICC committee too, right? It always helps the investigation process. And again, evidence can be very different. Like again, I said, it's again case to case basis. So it would depend. But in general, yeah, I would say just make sure you keep a record of what's happening with you. And if it's happening in an open place, obviously, if it's at a workplace and if people are around you, you always have cameras in the office premises. Make sure you note the time. Let the ICC committee investigate by themselves. Look at the camera recordings. A lot can happen. So I guess I answered it. But in case there's any other doubt with regards to this, I'm more than happy to answer.
Shwangi, very interesting point she has raised about, having cameras and all. So there is very interesting, rulings coming out, not in India, but outside India, which says that having cameras inside the office premises to watch the employees, that itself is a invasion of privacy.
This is the invasion of privacy. Yes. But we have it here in India.
We haven't really come to that level, but yes, there is a very interesting ruling which has come out from European Union, because some point in time, these cases will also come back to India, because we are also part of the global ecosystem only now. So in one of the rulings, they have said that yes, asking people to switch on the video from home if they are working from home, or even having cameras to watch the employees even in the office premises, is a violation of privacy. So yes, camera recording may or may not be always be sustainable, but yes, any electronic evidence, whether it is in the form of chats or messages, that is easily, that is the most, if it is a work from home scenario, is the most valuable evidence. And yes, if there is a witness to whatever has happened in the office, the witness testimony has to be there. You have to provide the name of the witness, and then witness has to testify also in front of the ICC when the inquiry is being held. So it cannot be on a hearsay, then the normal, the procedure will apply.
And the one more question is there from the participant. After the, all the proceedings from the ICC, and one decision is made by them. And so is there any also process for this, any training program after this, so that the acceptance of decision return to normal?
So I didn't get the question, but ICC is supposed to look into all these issues and recommend the punishment. And the punishment can be, it can be stopping the increment, it can be reduction in salary, it can even be, reduction in grade or designation, whatever it is. Typically the decision is final until unless there is a substantial, miscarriage of justice, as they say, and the decision is later on reversed.
Shivangi, would like to discuss anything else which is related to the PoSH and not covered yet? And meanwhile, I'm also going through the questions. So if any relevant,
I'm actually going through the chat box because are the ICC member permanent or does so the committee has a role for 3 years, and then again the rotation takes place. But if it's formed, it's like the initial period is like 3 years, and then definitely it's open to change. Apart from that, committee needs to be formed even if there are no women in company. Can you please explain how that committee be formed with majority of women? Can ICC recommend some compensation to women on count? So compensation when it comes to the PoSH Act is again not monetary, but it can be, as I said, interim relief. It can be taking time off. That taking time off, obviously, it's like a paid leave by the organization. And in case you are facing mental trauma, taking care of your expenses that way, the organization will do that for you. There is no direct monetary compensation. Let's say, the company rewarding like 1 lakh or 50,000 rupees. That's not a part of PoSH Act. But compensation in terms of, definitely, you take the time away, you do whatever is needed for you to get back to your original state of mind, for you to come back to the workplace. If anything can be done in that level from the organization, that is definitely being taken care of. But apart from that, I guess compensation is just limited to this. It's not that your designation suddenly just goes up, or nothing like that. But definitely, whatever help would be needed in terms of, let's say, consulting a doctor today, let's go, you need a psychiatrist help, or you need counseling. All of this will be taken care by the employer if you ask them to take care of it.
So monetary compensation or monetary settlement is not allowed. There is a very specific line in the act which says that you cannot settle it for money or anything. But similarly, for this point about mental health awareness and all, although there is no mention of it, but if you are a good employer, I think the taking care of, I'm talking not from the act perspective, but what an employer needs to do. So if you are a good employer, you must take care of the mental health challenges of the employees also, because that is another very sensitive topic which is coming in. If there is an aggrieved party in this which has faced trauma and trouble because of the action of one of the persons who's in the organization, it is very, very important that we take care of the employee through different channels, although it is not part mandated as per the act. But yes, as an employer, we must extend that hand.
Yeah, the external member can be reappointed. Yes, that's that's definitely a possibility. I guess pretty much. There's no other question, but we can keep this last 10 minutes open. If there are any other questions, we can take that up. And in case, getting back to the evidence point, if there is no evidence, it is still a proper complaint. It's still a legitimate complaint. There is no need to have an evidence, but if in case you have any, attaching that would just help ease the investigation process. That's it.
Yes, it can. The committee can call for all the relevant evidence and all. And end of the day, committee has to take a decision based on the circumstances of the case and the evidence presented to it. So it can call for additional evidence, and it has to do its job, with full, diligence.
And all this while the investigation is going on, there should be no breach of confidentiality, because confidentiality here plays a very important role. And making sure that, the details are not out in the open as to who the victim is, because in many cases, victim doesn't really want to report because they think that it's all going to be out in the open. And many cases, we see that there well tomorrow, and if her name is out in the open, there's just going to be a problem, right? Many people fear the consequences, and that is why we don't really see a lot of people reporting these days, because there is no proper sensitization. We don't really know how to deal with the complaint, and that's why confidentiality plays a very important role here. And this is again this is the responsibility of the ICC committee.
Right. So, Amitabh, if you see, it's also sometimes very multi-layer and nuanced kind of, this is things are sometimes light pink or things are pink. So things are not very clear sometimes, so psychology also plays a very important role.
Yes.
Sometimes this is not, legal framework is not working here. So what is the role you see that as a psychologist you see here in this for the prevention of sexual harassment?
So I'm not a psychologist, so I cannot comment from that perspective. Yes, but looking at it from what is happening from an HR perspective, there are two aspects of it. One is obviously the legal aspect of it, because it is comes under employment laws and everything. So HR has to have a framework which covers all the legal aspect of it, whether it is formation of PoSH committee, ICC, everything has to be taken care of by the legal from the proper legal due diligence. Other part of it is extending the hand to take care of the psychological safety or the mental health challenges which are very much prevalent in the workforce nowadays. That is another aspect of it. And whether it is any victim which is facing a problem, we must provide the requisite support to that person in terms of managing the trauma which has been caused by this kind of an act which has happened in the organization. And in fact, that should cover the entire employees irrespective of the gender. We should have a larger DI committee, or we should have a different thing which can take care of mental health challenges of the employee.
I think we have covered a lot of questions, and we have taken all the beginning from the introduction part to what the legality, what the legal prospects are there. One last question is that what is the constitution of LCC? What is LCC? I thought.
What is LCC?
Yeah, I think that should be ICC.
ICC, yeah.
That's a local complaint committee.
You see, composition of local complaint committee will be similar to what is there for ICC. There is no different rules for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So it is It is the requirement which comes, from different acts, because if you have a large company which is spread all across India, so you will have to have, different committees across India.
Okay. Shivangi, are you still there?
Hello.
Yeah,
Hello?
Shivangi. So any concluding
Romesh, really sorry, I'm having serious issues with my internet today. I'm actually traveling, so it's...
Voice is clear. Your voice is clear. If you want to share some concluding remark into this, we are just about to wind up this. Only
Okay.
the remaining, and we have taken all the questions, I think.
We've taken up all the questions. That's great. I guess to conclude, I would just make it very simple, is not to tolerate sexual harassment, whoever it is today. We talk about gender equality. And I guess we can only reach that stage where we are open to accepting complaints from any other gender, right? Today, it's high time we don't really just see women as an aggrieved party here. It's keeping our mind open, and I guess the responsibility is on all of us today as an individual, right? Because we are part of some of the other organization, and the way we actually react to a complaint made by, let's say, any of our colleague today also is very important. So I would just make it very simple, that just do not tolerate sexual harassment and make sure that you report it, and please encourage people to report. Do not really give them a suggestion or an opinion saying that it's fine, it's absolutely okay, because colleagues do that today. Because we have an habit of discussing with colleagues, they happen to always tell us that there's no need to report, it's fine, aisa to hota hi hai. And especially this happens with men, because men are bullied. They are like, ladki, because I've heard this personally in like my own office, like, ladki chhed rahi hai terko, why do you want to report? Isn't this a good thing for you? So, the attitude with regards to, how it feels when a man actually kind of complains is very different. And this is why we see that, there's a drastic fall, and, you don't really see the number going up, but in actual, the number is high, but it just doesn't come out in the open. So just a very humble request for everybody here is to be very sensitive with regards to this topic, and please be aware. Please be aware so that you are in a position to help somebody tomorrow, in case not yourself, but somebody else tomorrow. So do not tolerate sexual harassment. That's it. I guess that would be my conclusion. Yeah.
Right. Amitabh would like to add to you something as a
only point is that harassment at at workplace is a much larger term, and so while the one part of it is operational part of the act, which covers only women employees, and we look at it from the perspective of what exactly the law says. But if you look at it from an HR perspective and from a larger employer perspective, and the challenges which are there in the modern workplace, because end of the day, whatever rules and laws we will have, they will continue to evolve based on what is happening in the general society. As an employer, it is our responsibility to provide a safe workplace to all the persons in the organization, and that has to be done on a non-discriminatory basis. So that is the first requirement which we must adhere to and we must strive for. The second part of it is also thanks to, sometime remote working and people, moving from smaller towns to larger towns. There is a huge amount of migration, and sometimes, people are left alone, and there is so much of, challenges which are there from digital media and all. Helping people cope up with this and being aware of these mental health challenges and helping them through it is another, aspect of it, which as an employer we must focus on.
Yeah. So I guess as a society, I guess it's a responsibility for all of us today, right? On how we deal with this and how we accept this, because acceptance, I guess, plays a very important role here, because when many times a victim, when she joins back the organization, or he or she today joins back the organization, let's say after a gap, after the entire disposal is done, the way you treat the victim is also very important. And all of us today, again, being a major part of some or the other organization, should be able to do it better. And I guess change obviously is like, again, it starts from one person and then moves on. So I guess all of us today can just start doing it, so that tomorrow, I guess, it's a better place for all of us to live in and work, especially a workplace, because we spend most of our time at workplace, right? So it's a safer working environment for all of us.
I think we have done with all the questions and all. Finally, just I would like to say adequate awareness, that is, that is each and every organization must do for this PoSH. And thank you everyone for your inputs, for all the participants for your questions. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for joining the webinar. Thank you, Amitabh. Thank you, Ramesh. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.